All right. So let's talk a little bit about your background and how you ended up in supply chain technology.
Yeah, I've been in representing technology my whole entire career. My previous to Osa Commerce, I came from Oracle,
Okay.
and that's where I really cut my teeth on appreciating the value of data and how data can have significant impact for people to optimize their operations, to make stronger business decisions. I was hooked. And one of my boss's boss said, "Hey, I really think you should be focused on the supply chain side."
Okay.
And so, sure enough, I got a tap by Yifat, our chief growth officer, and said, "Hey, I want to sell you this idea about this platform." And I was a self doubter and took a look at it, and I said, "This is exactly what I'm interested in." So that's how I found myself at OSA.
Great. And I should mention, for those of you that saw the poster outside, it was Yifat that was supposed to be here.
Mm-hmm.
She sends her regards. She wasn't able to be with us today. Maybe that's what threw me off a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
but that's okay. We're gonna trudge on, and it's gonna be even better.
There you go.
Together.
There you go.
So tell me a little bit about OSA and what you aim to do, and kind of what the future looks like.
Sure. So OSA is an end-to-end supply chain platform, and its focus is on visibility and collaboration. And that's what really attracted me to this supply chain world. Is there's so many entities and segments within this area of the business that it's very difficult for people to communicate. And OSA does that very, very well. And it gives users the ability to have visibility of their inventory in real time.
It's great. And how old is the company again?
The platform is 7 years old.
Yeah. Okay.
And we branded about 5 months ago.
Yeah. So fairly new branding.
You're right.
So it's great to have you up here and to talk more about it and bring visibility to it.
Mm-hmm.
So next, let's talk a little bit about what are the key data challenges that you see that retailers are commonly facing in supply chain operations.
Right. I mean, it's the combination of handling and getting your inventory at the right place at the right time and working with a variety of different partners to help you do that. And that's, in my opinion, can be the beginning of constructive and positive improvement on your supply chain, but it also could be a challenge. Some of your partners, I'm going to assume most of your partners, do not communicate the same way. They may call in their records a location and address, and somebody else may call it a site. And that's the beginning that I started seeing that, hey, wait a minute, point A is not talking to point B all the way through the supply chain experience, and they don't have all the information to make the right calls and the right decisions. So how can we consume the information to allow people to have the appropriate data at their fingertips without disrupting the investments they've done in the past? Okay, my experience is retailers typically do not go through that thorough evaluation of, hey, does everyone needs to run on the same system that we have? Because it's very difficult to do and to build a network of partners running on your system. And OSA does that very well, where they can work with different, not just applications, but people, and to support them to accomplish what they're trying to accomplish.
Okay. So maybe building a little bit on that, how do you think that retailers can effectively leverage the data analytics to optimize their processes?
You know, it's the same thing. It just carries on for retailers. Typically, 60% of your business is the management of that inventory, your cost. So whether or not you're shipping from the same warehouse to any location or not, but these are some examples where OSA could say, hey, you have a warehouse in the East Coast, you have one on the West Coast. This order came from the West Coast. Your inventory we do have the same inventory closer to that customer. Maybe you should use that avenue to deliver the package, not just quicker to give the customer experience, but also to control your capital expenditures.
Great. What do you think are some of the best practices for collecting, managing, and storing supply chain data to ensure both accuracy but also reliability?
I think the data needs to be readily available, first of all.
Yeah.
I think you need a network where people could feel welcomed, where they can participate, where they could marry their information to other people's information to, again, to accomplish what you're trying to achieve. And so the openness is a very big thing. I came from some software companies that are industry leading, and that doesn't mean it's always good. Okay? I respect Oracle immensely, but you're running on Oracle databases. Okay? You need an environment where it doesn't matter. There are still people in the supply chain world that use Excel spreadsheets, believe it or not, and run a successful business.
There are a lot of people,
Yes.
I think,
Yes.
that use.
So
And the problem is then people leave and they've set up all their specific things in their Excel spreadsheet. Like, it's just a mess.
exactly. And for you to cater to the different types of people, we have executives who are interested in specific metrics, where you also have people in the supply chain world that need to get down to the very details. And it's those details that are often missing. There's tons of middleware products out there. There's no less than 100 of them. But do they thoroughly understand the logistics world, that it's kind of important to know the dimensions of the inventory that you're representing and the weight? May make a difference.
Yeah. All right, I want to pause there. I do have quite a few more questions, but I just want to see if anyone in the audience has questions, has topics, like to see if we should steer the conversation in a different direction, because obviously we want to see what you're interested in.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I'll keep asking questions.
Yep.
I'm going to have you repeat that into the microphone really fast for the recording.
Sure. How does OSA help keep the different parties aligned using the same terminology, I guess I would say? So you have a customer who's cut a PO and a freight forwarder who's moving something on a bill of lading that's coming into the warehouse and needs an appointment. And to know how to match, like, we've got an ASN in the system, but how do we know that that truck's got this ASN, or when is this coming in?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, we got to allow the end users and the users who are participating in this network to continue to function as is. But you need to make sure that additional information could be made available to them to make a more accurate decision. And that's what it boils down to. Is not changing the way they their daily activities, but it's feeding them with information, recommendations to allow them to make a better decision. You talk about delivering, I don't know, depending on the environment, is weather important? Why isn't weather being brought into this equation? Are you speaking to the ports or the applications that are managing those ports? Are they backed up? Would that be important on making that decision? So OSA is very, very good at consuming the data and aggregating that data and making it very constructive for people to make strong business decisions.
That's good.
Hold on, Bjorn.
So I just want to understand the system a little bit better. So does it pick up when you issue a purchase order to your suppliers, or it picks up once you get goods delivered into the United States? Is it an end-to-end kind of solution?
It is end-to-end.
Okay.
And if you already have functionality or an infrastructure that allows you to generate those purchase orders, OSA is very accommodating and say, we will consume that information, whether it's coming from your ERP system or what have you.
Okay, and then it kind of communicates with your freight forwarder, gets all the airway bills or bill of lading or something like that, and you can track it, or it just communicates.
Track it and execute on it. So the other thing is, not only are we really good at consuming data, but we have actionable workflows that you can do what-if scenarios all day long.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody else? Okay, I'm gonna move on then. So everyone's always talking about emerging technologies.
Yep.
So how do you think emerging technologies like IoT, blockchain, AI play a role in addressing the data challenges in the supply chain?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent question. I think it's about the openness. An
Yeah.
open platform as a service is critical. I have no idea, if you will, if you're going to ask me what's going to happen in 5 years in the supply chain world. But having a platform that can adapt and welcome other services, this chat CPT coming out, do you have a platform that can accept that when you're ready and make it transparent to the end users so they can have, and their journey could be at an optimal level? And that's what OSA does really well. It's the framework. It's not all OSA or nobody. We have all the key applications: workforce management, inventory management, order management, transportation management. It all comes in the same platform. Turn it on if you want to use it. Don't turn it on if you don't want to use it. But we will work with any application out there, and that's what we do really well. And I think that's critical in the supply chain world, because there's so much diversity going on. It's a puzzle that is very difficult to solve without having an open platform. API is one format. There's different types of languages out there, some that have been around for a long time, some called EDI, some called Excel spreadsheets, some are what we call unstructured, where it's a physical, like PDF document. We do really well extracting data from unstructured formats, and we do a really good job with using different languages and applying that to the overall picture. In the EDI world, for those who are experienced in EDI, one of the top issues is the error rate. This is a standard operational procedure, and there are fields to be filled out. Well, what if the fields aren't filled out? What if you're dealing with business partners in different areas of the world that have different policies that they need to adhere to? How do you add additional information to make sure that there's consistency in the primary format of communication, in this case, EDI? So that's what I mean. There's a gravitation to API, but having an engine that doesn't care, that allows you to say, you know what, you prefer to speak in EDI, you prefer to speak in unstructured, we're willing to work with you. And you can continue to do your business the way you want to do it. We're just going to make it better for you and easier.
Yeah. How important do you think collaboration and data sharing between the different stakeholders in the supply chain ecosystem, how important do you think that is? I mean, obviously you have an open source.
Right.
And maybe a second question to that is the differences in the U.S. versus Europe. I don't even know if you guys are in Europe yet. Like, how do you address those challenges?
No, I mean, it goes back to the openness. I do think, and if it's a repeat, I apologize. It's just that those days of trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, it's just not going to happen. People do have different compliance requirements, right, different languages, different ways they've been doing business, just because they've been doing business since the beginning that way. And change management can be difficult. If you have a resource that accepts the information and has a network that is open to both business executives all the way down to people on the front line, then they can communicate on the source of truth, the data. The problem is the data's all over the place and it's different, and people have a hard time. People use certain data formats and make an interpretation, where other people, whether they're running a warehouse, will use a different format and make a decision, and the decisions often don't match up.
Right. So a lot of people here in the audience are retailers. Mm-hmm. What strategies do you think that retailers can adopt to help facilitate this open sharing? Yeah,
I think, having identifying the key challenges are critical. Walking in just saying, hey, I heard you're open, so it sounds good to me. but making sure that there's key metrics that you want to see have significant impact and that it's tracked from beginning all the way to the end. You're going to have a stronger relationship with your vendor of choice, and that vendor of choice will be on the same page of what your goals are. It happens in most internal companies. You do it to your boss. These are my goals, and this is where I'm at. OSA allows you to do that with your partners. And I think if you have that type of environment, you can start working towards strategies that may be in front of you and strategies you may not even come up with.
Right.
Right? I didn't know this CPD was going to be around. And next thing you know, my daughters have it on their phones.
Yeah, people are using it to write emails and replicate songs, and it's crazy. So maybe taking that one step further, what steps do you think that retailers can take to ensure the data security portion of it and compliance with industry regulations, while also harnessing that data for improvements?
Yeah, I think you need to make sure that you lift up the hood, and understand what you're most comfortable, where that information is going to be residing in, that you have full access to it at all times. Just because it's in the cloud does not mean you should be able to move it wherever you want to. Why wouldn't you? You may have an advantage over AWS or Azure. You may move into an international country that may have their own regulations. Why could you not move that information? It doesn't matter, or it shouldn't matter. And same thing with security purposes.
Right.
We have some people that say we want to build our own private cloud. A, because we have the capital to do it, and B, we have regulations that require it. No problem.
All right, good. So this is now we're moving into the advice section of the interview.
Sure.
So I'd love if you can give advice to retailers that are looking to implement these data-driven decision-making processes in their supply chain operations.
That's great. That's I came from Oracle. Number one thing, 75% of large projects fail. They don't fail because the system doesn't work. They fail because it goes past the timeline that you had projected. It goes beyond maybe the budget that you had set aside. In my eyes, those are problematic. So for a retailer to have and to go with the best practices to get up live as quickly as possible, I've seen a lot of success that way. Because in ERP or supply chain, it's difficult to have everybody part of the evaluation process. And when they go through deployment, it happens every time where new people show up and say, I want to do this, I wanted to do that, before it's even up live. And that makes a project no longer to go live in a short period of time, called 6 weeks, it turns into 6 months. So if you have your key metrics and what your challenges are you're trying to accomplish, and you stick to the leading practices to get up as quickly as possible, and you agree with those leading practices as much as possible. It doesn't need to be 100%. You can make changes when you're up live. But you start to record that information and record the success in the optimization of that process quicker. Does it make sense?
Do you have any specific examples of things that you've done with your customers to help that implementation phase go smoother? I mean, you don't have to give company names, obviously, but maybe just, people can learn best from lessons shared.
Yeah, we see it from our enterprise. Enterprise clients who come in with a large IT group of people, and they know what they're doing. And that's not always the most efficient. I have seen, we have a small branded company that onboarded with us saying, hey, listen, we've got this great idea. I don't know much about the back end management of the inventory. What do you recommend? And what OSA does is we have leading practices. And we have a portfolio of practices, whether it's for order management, transportation management, we open up that portfolio and say which one closest resembles what your environment looks like, and we'll start from there. It may not accomplish 100% of what you're looking for, but maybe 80%. So all we need to do is work on the 20%. And a leading practice is called a leading practice because it's proven to have impact. Yeah.
Good. Any additional questions that have been sparked in the minds of?
Yeah. What has been your I guess your experience with change management? You said it earlier, and the data-driven decision process.
Yeah, that's a biggie. Change management is a biggie. I think sticking to the leading practices, OSA spends an awful lot of time focused on the onboarding process, making sure that representatives from each department is participating actively. I think goes a long ways, and being able to adopt to what and work with the prospect on what that deployment needs to look like. That's an excellent question. So, kudos.
Great. Any other questions out in the crowd? No? Okay. So I have another one.
Oh boy.
How can retailers stay agile and adapt to evolving market trends by utilizing data effectively in their supply chain strategies?
It's cost management.
Yeah.
It is cost management. I mean, if you go back what I said originally, statistically speaking, if 60% of your cost of managing, purchasing, and delivering inventory is in the 60% range, that should probably be an area that you'd want to control your capital expenditures. But on the same note, depending on your strategy, making sure that the customer journey and the customer experience is at its peak level. I touched on earlier, working with a system that's very open. Even though we have a WMS system built into our platform, if someone says, we already deployed this other one, can you work with it? Having a vendor that says, absolutely. And giving you that agility to make changes, I think is very important.
Great. So, is there anything that you can share about what the future looks like for OSA?
Yeah. Well, I could share what I know that I don't know, the future.
Okay.
And that's the whole point of this message.
Yeah.
I do know that this concept of artificial intelligence is catching grip. It's always been around. It's been around for a while. Depends on what you define artificial intelligence is, but it's been a while. Been around.
It's just getting smarter.
It is getting smarter. And having control of the core fundamental of your data is critical. When you go buy a house, you don't look at the doorknob. You look at the foundation of the house. You can change the doorknob later, or the paint color. And the same thing for a retailer, to have a system that can adapt like that and allow you to scale. What happens if I do use a 3PL partner and it goes sour? How can I absorb a new service quickly? These are conversations that people in our space should be able to answer very easily. And that's been some of the challenges. They like to lock you in. Right? So, using the data, the fundamental data, not getting lost in it, but starting it at the pure foundation of what's important to you to run your business, I think is key. And if you don't know, leading practices would not be a bad idea to take a look at.
All right. What haven't we covered? What else?
Well, Katie, I've really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah.
So, the future is. You mentioned about the future. I'm really excited about it. I see a lot of change going on in the marketplace, and I think there's a comment about change management. I even see different pockets on how people are embracing it quicker or maybe slower than others, and that's okay. But having an area where people can go and test things out and deploy and mitigating risk is a good thing. And yes, do I think AI is going to play a critical role? Yes, that's why I think data at the end of the day is king. What you do with the data and how you handle the data is another topic. But starting with the foundation of managing the data under one umbrella, I think is something that should be looked at strongly.
All right, good. So if people want to come visit you at the OSA booth, what are they gonna see?
Booth number, I can't remember the booth number. We have the software running. If you want to take a peek at it, I have a colleague there right now. We're in the back corner next to the restrooms, but we'd love to speak to you further about it. So yeah.
Super. Well, it's been my pleasure
Yes.
to have this conversation with you. We won't tell you thought, but I think we had a better conversation than we could have.
She's pretty smart.
But she's pretty great.
So
too.
I hope I did okay here.
Yeah. No, it was a pleasure to have you, and thank you all for being the small but mighty in joining us today and all your great questions. We really appreciate it. We hope you go out and enjoy the rest of your time here at Deliver.
Thank you.